Hello, everyone. This is Tom Fox back again for another episode of the Hill Country Podcast. Excuse me, the award winning Hill Country Podcast. I'm absolutely thrilled today to have Matt Goodwyn with us. Matt, first of all, welcome and thank you so much for taking the time to visit with us today.
Well, thank you for having me. It's exciting to be here.
Matt, could you tell us where you're from and your educational and professional background?
Absolutely. I grew up here in Kerrville. I was a Tybee grad. From there, went to Schreiner University. I was there in 98 to 2002. I got a degree in exercise science. Played soccer all 4 years. After graduating, I did a little bit of a teaching, PE health for a year, then branched off and started working for the YMCA in Bernie here in Kerrville, connected to San Antonio, in after school care, sports director. And then about 2 or 3 years after that, was able to make my way back to Schreiner as a professional as the director of campus recreation. About that time, I was working on my master's, finishing my master's in kinesiology, focused on sports psychology. At the time, I was thinking I was going to go be a sports psychologist for any professional team that would have me. But then I ended up staying at Schreiner. I grew into different positions. A couple years after finishing my master's, I started a doctoral program. Finished that about 7 or so years ago in psychology, specializing in mediation and conflict resolution, which has helped me a lot in my growing profession at Schreiner. I've gone from a adjunct faculty a variety of times, from psychology and exercise science to business leadership to assistant dean of students to now dean of students.
What was the topic of your dissertation?
I was looking at conflict resolution measures, essentially how people approach different conflict resolutions on social media. So at the time, Facebook was like the social media platform. So I was kind of comparing and contrasting how individuals reacted to resolving conflict online versus offline, and found that there's not a lot of difference. It's just approached and differently in the sense of, when offline, if you wanted to avoid someone, then you would avoid them. Online, that means something completely different. And so it kind of branched out into some interesting information and findings that it's hard for people to just avoid and ignore what's happening in their online presence, because it's become so ingrained in our just everyday interactions. When you start talking about, well, one of the examples that came up is, many people would say, to avoid it, we'll just turn it off. But you can do that, but you're also turning off a piece of your social interaction. There's an interesting dynamic there that we kind of found through my dissertation work.
Do you find any variation in either generations or age groups? For someone like myself, a boomer, down to someone, my daughter, a millennial, or even a Gen Zer? Or
There,
excuse me, yeah, Gen Zer.
yeah, there are some differences, but there's a lot of overlap where people just approach it in the same way. You find that a lot of the habits that people typically have are things that they've learned just through the experiences they've had growing up in different situations. Other personality traits kind of come into play as well, confidence and things to that nature, of people being able to have what you would call difficult conversations or challenging conversations with somebody, and be is more willing to have those conversations in the face-to-face venue, or even online, kind of approaching it in the sense of, let's work through this together, or just trying to avoid it altogether. So the, current generation, the avoidance looks a bit different. They're avoiding it, but want it to be resolved at the same time, usually in the exact same moment it's happening. So the patience of trying to work through the process of working out any kind of conflict is a bit different. To where you find kind of the older generation is a bit more patient and willing to work through the process to get to a resolution. Yeah.
I was kind of intrigued by one of your opening remarks to that question, which is that in many ways the approaches are similar,
Mhm.
literally across generations. And I do a lot of work in the corporate world. And on the one hand, I continually hear people say this generation doesn't want to work, they don't have our values, or some other backhanded compliment that I think is totally inappropriate having a daughter in that age. But on the other hand, I hear people say exactly what you said. There's really not that much difference.
Mhm.
And they may have a difference in approach. They may have a different philosophy about using the technology, but the approaches and the core values are really the same. Would that be consistent with what you found?
I think so. Really, at the end of the day, when whether it's a younger individual or an older individual or anyone in between, trying to get to a resolution of a conflict, they're looking for a solution. How they approach it can be completely different because sometimes depending upon who's in the conflict can come at it from different angles or different backgrounds or even different ways of being able to communicate. I think that's been a big challenge probably more recently because the way people are communicating has changed so drastically over time and very quickly. So now when you're looking for what does everybody want, they really just want it to be resolved. The hard part is trying to figure out what's the resolution that both parties or all parties are okay with moving forward with. And that's typically the hard part. And I think the acceptance piece is a bit different generational sometimes. But again, I think it comes back just the background of individuals, what they've experienced, what they've learned. A good piece of resolution work is education, right? Is educating them on the process of really just how to have an open communication with another individual, even if you're on opposing sides, knowing that what you're trying to do is get to a common resolution, and that can be difficult, but not so different across generations. Everybody's wanting that same type of resolution. Patience is typically the one piece is a little bit different. At least the students that I work with at the college, a lot of ways that instant gratification comes to the surface of like, but I want it now. Like there's a process to work through, and I understand you want it now, and we're getting there, but this is the process we need to go through.
Let's turn to your current work as the dean of students.
Sure.
Who do you report to?
Travis Frampton, the vice president of academic affairs and the provost currently.
And what are some of the key roles for you right now as the dean of students?
Oh, wow. Really, most of all the co-curricular work on campus, I'm either directly overseeing or have a big part in the facilitation of or working with people to make that happen. So that's from my athletics, residence life, student activities, campus recreation activities, the first year experience, a lot of our retention work and persistence work. There's a little bit of overlap with working with faculty and implementation of those things through advising, things to that nature. But really, on the student services side, is kind of the title that we give it. It's making sure that the students, no matter what they're doing on campus, even if it's academic or non academic, even though in my world is more of that co curricular non academic piece, is that the students are engaged, they're having a good experience, we're providing them the services that they expected when they arrived to the campus. And then I work across campus to make sure that we're really fulfilling that need and continuing to push for the new things that we don't know exist yet to continue to provide that experience for our students.
I've had the opportunity to visit with several of your colleagues at Schreiner and have been able to educate me on the history of the university. And it really started, as I understand it, as a college or an institute of higher learning for people in this part of Texas, in the Hill Country, who perhaps couldn't get to a larger university or geographically it was close enough they could attend. Does Schreiner still serve primarily the Hill Country, or is it much beyond that now?
It was beyond that. I mean, obviously, we want to make sure that we're providing the service for our area students. If they choose to come to Schreiner University, that's great. I know growing up here in Kerrville, Schreiner wasn't my first thought of going to a university, but the relationship I think between now and then was a bit different with the city and the university. But now, yeah, we are here in the Hill Country. We want the Hill Country students, but also we have students from a variety of different states that are currently enrolled in our campus. I mean, there's students from Hawaii that are on our campus. We want any student who's looking for a good private liberal arts university education experience to consider Schreiner. And we feel that we have a lot of good core programs and new programs that we've started to fit that need. So yeah, we're open for anyone and everyone that's looking for a good educational experience.
I'd like to ask you to draw upon your experience as a student athlete at Schreiner and what being a student athlete, what did that add to your university experience? And given that Schreiner is moving towards a football program, what's that experience like in 2024 into 2030 for a student?
Sure. When I was a student there, we were in the midst of a transition pieces. I came in as an NAIA athlete, finished as an NCAA athlete from NAIA to D3, but the university itself population was much smaller for the student population size. And the experience I had was a very kind of close interactions across every student on campus. There were a lot of athletes on campus at the time, still are a good number of our student population are athletes, And really it provides, or at least from my experience, provided that sense of pride in your university, pride in representing your university, and you kind of wore that with you where you went, on campus, off campus. But also provided me a lot of connections that I don't know I would have made if I wasn't an athlete, just in my own personal experience, connections with faculty members, and then even now in my current profession of aligning, not just the athletic playing experience, but the athletic team dynamic experience that I had then as a part of a team moving forward as I progressed in my professional career. The same skill sets apply. It's just applied in a different venue. You're no longer student athlete, but I'm still part of a team, and a lot of those type of dynamics still exist and need to exist. And we still live into that today. We have more programs now, we have more student athletes now, and our student body has increased, but we continue to push. It's a student athlete, academics first, athletics is there as a piece of your experience. Even if that was a good majority of your decision making to come to the university, we quickly work with the students to make sure they have that academic track, and that's also part of their Schreiner experience. And then our coaches and everyone across campus are working with them to pull out those skill sets that aren't just an athlete based experience. It's all those other skill sets that can be applied in different ways as they progress into more of a professional career outside of the university when they graduate onto those next things. And we take, I think, a lot of pride in that and establishing those relationships so they are comfortable living in that space of student athlete, and recognizing that it is a privilege. It's not a right. It's like what we like to say on our campus of it's a privilege to be an athlete. And we recognize that. We help you recognize that. And we live into that to really help them be successful in that moment, but then have that confidence to be successful when they graduate and leave us.
Given your where you grew up, i.e., here, I want to ask you a few questions about the relationship of Schreiner to Kerrville. And I would also preface it by saying I moved here 3 years ago, and I've been the beneficiary of many talks, speeches, symposium, trailhead, athletic events at Schreiner University. So I see a very opening set of arms from Schreiner to the community here. So could you talk just a little bit about that?
Absolutely. So, from my experience growing up here, for my transition from high school into the Schreiner College at the time, Schreiner, if it was really kind of ingrained into the Kerrville city activities and then that partnership, as a student coming in, I didn't see that at that moment in time. And this was back in '98. While it was there, it was kind of like a hidden piece of Kerrville. So if you knew it was there, you went looking for it. But outside of that, it was maybe hard to identify that was it was kind of back there. It's kind of tucked away. Now, I will say that, but I grew up at the age of 6, I was playing AYSO soccer on the game field over there. So there has always been a partnership with Schreiner and Kerrville. There's no doubt there. But I think more recently, we really started to lean in into that relationship, and in growing that relationship. We have the trailhead now, the trailhead beer garden on our campus is also connected to the walking trail. We have all the events that you mentioned, the lecture series, athletic events, other types of community events that we're inviting the community on campus, and we want that relationship. We understand that we have a very important role to play within our community, and we're always looking for ways of growing that community relationship between the university and Kerrville and the greater community beyond that, nation and worldwide. And we're always trying to grow in that partnership, whatever that means, whatever direction that means, because we take the role of education and the educators very seriously, and we take a lot of pride in that, and we definitely want to make sure that we're providing that to anyone and everyone part of the community in a lot of different ways. So it's grown over just the time that I've been here and at the campus by leaps and bounds from '98 to today, where it's almost hard to distinguish the line between Kerrville and Schreiner. We're almost merged together now, which is, I think, a great thing, especially as you mentioned football coming around the horizon. It's really feeling good in this moment to be a part of Schreiner, and how we're able to be a part of the Kerrville community even more now than I think, in my opinion, from years and years ago. It just continues to get better and better.
One of the things that impresses me the most about the educational outreach was the banking program. And I say that because having moved to the Hill Country, I've really seen the needs of rural Texas in a lot of different ways than I'd previously seen living in Houston for 40 years. One of those is banking, and particularly in agricultural or ranching. focused banking. And so having Schreiner having that sort of academic focus really speaks to me about a university trying to address some of the problems of rural Texas. Would that be a fair assessment?
I think so. It kinda goes to the saying, "See a need, fill a need" type of, mentality and attitude is we wanna look around and say, "What is the need?" We're gonna be providing the what you would probably consider the traditional core courses, core majors, but what are those other things that are out there that are on the horizon, are currently happening that don't have as much support that we can help provide that support with? How can we be on, what I like to call the front foot of trying to find the need that is out there that we can help provide? And we brought a lot of things to that nature to campus, from banking, aviation now
Right.
is another one. I know our nursing program continues to grow because we're really seeing that need in the area of, okay, if we're really going to be providing the services and the educational opportunities that we say we are, what are these other pockets of areas that we can really help in those areas and enhance those experiences for those people, and then help them have that opportunity to grow in those in that career path for them. It's a very service oriented leadership work that we try to be a part of, to bring really to the community in the educational world that we live in.
You weren't aware of this, but if you give the title of the podcast episode in your remarks, you win a special gift, and you have given us that, being on the front foot. So after this is over, you're gonna get a special gift from the Texas Hill Country Podcast Network. Where do you see your role and then Schreiner in 2030 and beyond?
Continuing to grow, and growth, I think, it means a lot of different things to a lot of different people. Obviously, we want to continue to provide a space for students to be on our campus or even a part of our campus, whether that's physically, online. As education continues to grow into the future, there's a lot of different opportunities out there of how that can happen. We always want to be the residential piece where we can bring students to campus and help them have that experience of being a student, continuing to explore their goals and aspirations in the current moment that they're living, but then help them to project out the next 4 to 6 to 8 years as they spend time on our campus, graduate, and then go into work, go into that graduate program, go into that next phase of their career. I like to consider our current students professional students, since the amount of time they put into it. You're a professional student, you're learning the ropes. You get to that graduation point. As we get to 2030 and beyond, I think you'll see Schreiner in a place where we've continued to, again, be on the front foot of exploration of what other programs can we provide on our campus, academically, co-curricular. What are those shared experiences that we can have with the area community and beyond, to where Schreiner really gets to be a part of sharing in those moments, and helping to provide those moments in whatever role or capacity that means, for those that we're working with. So I really think that you'll see a lot of growth in a lot of different ways from the university and how we're connecting with the area community.
And unfortunately, we're near the end of our time for this episode. But before we leave, I wanted to ask you if our listeners wanted any more information on yourself, your role at Schreiner, or about Schreiner University, what would be the best place or places for them to go?
Oh, sure. One of the best places, our website, charter.edu, provides a lot of different information that the university is doing, and currently ongoing. Our calendar is there, so if you have any thoughts or aspirations to come to campus, to come to any of our events, athletic or other, you can find that there on the website, on our calendar. My information is there as well. We have a Shriner Facebook page. That's another great way of following not just what's happening at the campus, but spotlights of students, the student success, staff success, faculty success, how we're involved or becoming involved in different community, different events and things like that. It's a good way. Also Instagram. So a lot of different social media platforms. You can find Shriner University and all the things that we're doing with everyone around us, and all the students on campus, of all the fun activities that they're participating in as well.
Matt, I wanted to thank you again for taking the time to visit with us today, and I hope we can continue this conversation.
Absolutely, that'd be great. Love to come back anytime.